Hi, how have you all been? It's been a while. I've not come to greet you since April, but I'm back. In the last couple of weeks, I've been doing unbelievable things. Since I left you in May, I read an 857-page book called Medical Sciences. It fascinated me. I love biochemistry. I love physics. I love chemistry. I love science. I love astronomy. I love cosmology. I love aviation. Been watching plenty of interesting videos and learning how to become a pilot all at the same time. But I finished an 857-page book on medical sciences, and coincidentally, it just so happens that I'm reading it a second time because that's just amazing for you. It was fascinating to read about the different systems within the body. It was a fascinating experience, and now I'm on round two. It's taking longer than round one, but we'll get there. I've also read The Tao of Physics, which is also fascinating in of itself. But not to get sidetracked, this video tonight is about the amazing film that came out on Friday called Oppenheimer. I'm sure you've seen it advertised. It was an amazing film. Oppenheimer was torn. He was absolutely torn. He had no choice. He had to build the atomic bomb, all part of the Manhattan Project. But he was torn inside. He was torn. Did he apologize for what he did? No. Was he ripped to pieces because of his beliefs? Because of his moral beliefs? Because of his affiliations? Apparently so. Did that stop him? Hardly so. It was a fascinating film, and it's so graphical. You get a picture of what was going through Oppenheimer's mind. It's being called the film of the century. The film of the century. Fascinating. You see that Oppenheimer had a consciousness. On a similar note, and I read this pertaining to Albert Einstein, he was also very, very torn. He didn't know to put himself. So it happens that Albert Einstein actually expressed regret after the bomb was dropped. The bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Loss of life, consciousness, regret, responsibility. And these complicated beings, you see what their sex life is like as well. Because they're complicated beings. But they're also imperfect beings. Nobody's perfect. Oppenheimer. The film of the century. I was fascinated. I got to see what was going through his mind. And you also get to see the way a physicist, these great geniuses, these masterminds, the way they think. They don't just think physics. The images, they live those images. That's why they become physicists. I've been reading numerous books on physics, besides biochemistry. I've also been reading numerous books on physics, Tao of physics, medical sciences, life of Albert Einstein. I'm reading it in Hebrew. It's fascinating. Were these perfect people? Hardly so. Do they have complicated lives? Apparently so. Yeah. I also wanted to point out that sometimes you gotta just do the right thing. And the world doesn't see you in a perfect light whilst you're doing it. The world doesn't see you in a perfect light after you've done it. And history doesn't necessarily judge you in a favorable way, in a kind way. At times, history does injustice to people. But Oppenheimer did it. Did his Jewish identity play a role? Perhaps. Jews are marginalized. Jews are persecuted. And that persecution hasn't necessarily come to an end. And you see that play out in Oppenheimer's mind, Robert Oppenheimer's mind. I also think it's worth pointing out that the American government had to do what it had to do. Remember, America is a gathering of nations, a gathering of peoples from all over the world. And America carries a moral responsibility to ascertain that there's peace in the world. Do they always do it in the right manner? It's perhaps questionable. Nonetheless, they play a role on the world stage. Oppenheimer and his affiliations and his beliefs and his interests were altogether quite complicated. But he had to do what he had to do. And some people died in the process. Not some people. A lot of people. As some of you may know, I could kind of relate to that kind of thing. I've been watching videos in aviation, and I could probably play a vital role in saving a downing aircraft if necessary. I've learned was watching various different videos on saving an aircraft when it's necessary to do so, that you got to put on your oxygen mask first. Only then could you fly the plane and steer it out of trouble. So if the plane is descending, so long as it's above 10,000 feet, between 30,000 and 10,000 feet, you had better have your oxygen mask on. Otherwise, you're of no use to anybody. At times, pilots think they'll be martyrs and they'll just save the plane. They don't want to be distracted. Doesn't go well. Doesn't bode well. On a similar note, when a parent has a child with them on the plane, the parent has to put on their own mask and then tend to the child. In my own life, those who know me know that that's what I had to do. I had to save my own life in order to be there for my children to be there for my children. What other unconscious beings did as a result, that's between them and their creator. That's between them and their creator. They'll have to give answers for it one day. That's between them and their creator. In the case of Oppenheimer, he had to save the day. The war wasn't coming to an end, and Japan was hell-bent with her allies, Germany and others, to take over the world with some fantasy in mind that somehow, by persecuting most of the world, somehow their lives will turn out better. We all know where that comes from. What's behind that? But at the end of the day, it's of no benefit. That's my message this evening. I hope you do go out to watch the Oppenheimer film if you haven't watched it yet. And just be aware, you have to understand physics to be able to get a good grasp of what's happening. If you don't understand physics, I mean, there are parts of it which are interesting, but if you don't understand physics, if you perhaps just have a keen interest in politics or in action or watching bombs go off, there is an element in the film that covers that kind of thing, but it's of no purpose for you if those are your interests. But if you believe in certain moral beliefs, if you have a consciousness, and if you are perhaps concerned about the well-being of our planet and of people on the planet, and you care about other beings, and you're a pretty intelligent person, I'd advise you to go out to watch Oppenheimer. I look forward to your amazing feedback. And those of you who haven't subscribed yet, it's not too late. And those of you who have left me, perhaps you could come back. It'll be worth your while. I look forward to your amazing comments. Smash the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Peace. I love you. Keep well.